It's a balmy afternoon in Grey Highlands. It is Friday. I am one day late. My apologies. Enjoying the beauty of this escarpment does tend to take up more space than one may anticipate. Today's episode, we are going to be going over zoning. Zoning isn't boring. It's everything. Working here in Grey Highlands off-grid to redesign how we think about care. You probably passed 5 kinds of zoning on your way into town today. You might have driven through farmland, low-density residential, institutional land, a commercial corridor. What you didn't see were the lines, the invisible boundaries that decide what gets to grow, what gets to heal, and what gets denied. But I'm not here to talk about boring bylaws. I'm here to talk about the bones of our towns. Because if food insecurity, housing crisis, and generational trauma are the symptoms, zoning is absolutely part of the root systems. What is zoning, really? Zoning is a municipal tool that governs how land can be used. That's it. But don't let that simplicity fool you. It determines whether you can build housing on a property, whether you can grow food, whether you can open a shared kitchen or allow someone to sleep on their own land in a tiny home. Zoning is a civic architecture, and right now it's working against many of the people who need it most. In Grey Highlands, the updated zoning bylaw published in June of this year introduced some increased flexibility, secondary suites, home businesses, agricultural protections, but it still reflects a traditional planning model: divide, designate, restrict. What it doesn't do yet is respond to urgent local issues like 1 in 5 homes being food insecure, the lack of local trauma recovery infrastructure, the absence of affordable healing-oriented housing. We are told these are provincial problems, but I believe that's a myth. Municipalities do have the power through overlays. I want to walk you through the 3 overlays I've designed as part of my ongoing community health model. These are theoretical tools grounded in both lived experience and research in ecological public health. They haven't been submitted yet, but they're gaining traction visually, socially, politically. These overlays are not quick fixes. They're part of a long con restoration. Let's start with overlay 1. Resilience food infrastructure. This overlay would allow municipally zoned land, vacant lots, library green spaces, even underutilized edges of public land to support community greenhouses, nutrient-dense food hubs, fermentation kitchens, and resilience shelf pantries. Think about it. If each municipal building had a shelf of fermented, ancestral, and nutrient reparative food, we could shift food banks from scarcity to sovereignty. This is food as public health intervention. It's a shift in perspective. And we know from the literature that fermented foods, mitochondrial support, and microbiome care change mental health outcomes. This overlay makes the space for that to happen structurally, not just symbolically. Let's move into overlay 2. The Healing Commons District. Overlay 2 turns forgotten land into spaces for trauma-informed care. I'm talking about overgrown public lots, side lawn spaces beside clinics, green space behind libraries. These become outdoor peer support spaces, rest loops and trauma-informed gardens, sites for land-based recovery programs. We don't need more institutions. We need more healing land. This overlay offers a low-barrier, care-integrated response to trauma, where programming can happen outdoors, cost-effectively, and within walking distance of existing services. This is particularly relevant in rural towns, where stigma, distance, and systemic gaps leave people chronically unsupported. We're going to move into overlay 3, micro-housing and recovery. This one's personal. It proposes that municipalities zone land or adjust permissions to allow tiny homes, ADUs, intergenerational co-housing, clustered dwellings near food-growing land. This would allow small footprint, energy-efficient homes linked to trauma-informed design principles to emerge around infrastructure we already have. Not institutional, not carceral, just homes that make recovery livable. If every community allowed just 3 of these clusters, we'd see measurable improvements in housing access, especially for single parents, elders, and people living with chronic illness. In trauma and microbiome research, we use this phrase often. Structure shapes function. A traumatized brain learns to survive. It doesn't rest. It doesn't process. A traumatized community responds the same way. Restriction, hypervigilance, scarcity. But change the structure and function follows. Zoning is structure. When we open space to grow, to gather, to dwell, we create the biological preconditions for health. This is where ecological, public health, and municipal planning intersect. And it's the basis of the field echo model I'm piloting right here in Grey Highlands. I want you to walk your town. And not metaphorically, literally. Walk past the empty lot you try not to look at. Walk behind the fire hall. Walk through the underused park. And ask yourself, what could live here? Could this be a food share hub? A rest loop? A greenhouse with a tiny home beside it? I want you to name that space. Share those overlays and start a conversation. If we continue to wait for permission, we'll wait forever. But if we seed differently, we grow differently. These overlays are ideas, but they're also architecture. In the coming episodes, I'll take you deeper into food preservation, trauma-informed fermentation, and microbial repair, all through the lens of land-based practice. Until then, keep growing through the cracks. And remember, care is not a service, it is a system.